Yo, what's going on, guys? Membro here, back at it with another college football weekly podcast. Let's get right into it. Week 8, we got our Week 8 takeaways. Here are my top takeaways. First off, the biggest game probably of the season, top 6 matchup. Penn State, Ohio State, two of the big dogs in the Big Ten. Going into it, I thought these two teams were the best teams in college football. One team, yeah, could make the argument. The other team, Penn State, not so much. That offense did not look very good at all. As I say right here, Penn State fooled me. Ohio State is the best team in the nation. Ohio State, they've got the competition. They've got the defense. They got the offense. They got it all together. They're avoiding scandals, unlike their other neighbor to the north, like Michigan. I don't know if we'll get into all that today. Maybe I could make a separate video on all of that stuff going on with Michigan. We came into this thing thinking, Penn State, this is the best defense that James Franklin has ever had. Even with that, he can't beat Ohio State. Again, Penn State falls to Ohio State. And he's only had 1 or 2 wins against Ohio State his entire career there. Florida State is legit, and this Jordan Travis, Keon Coleman duo is pretty amazing. You got to look at, if I'm an NFL team, I'm looking at Keon Coleman and Marvin Harrison. Those two guys look like real legit NFL type receivers. Also, I believe Purcell on Florida, he's a little more of an underrated guy, but you got to put him in that elite, maybe NFL level tier of receivers. Obviously he's on the Florida teams that's just straight up not as good this year as Florida State, as your Florida States and Ohio States. So Florida State is legit. They get another win. We can go look over here. They get another win against Duke. They pulled out big time in the fourth quarter, 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to pull away. Florida State, they're convincing me more and more as the season is going on. They're getting consistent wins, and now they're starting to play competition. Virginia, 1-5 Virginia goes in. Their only win was against a FCS team. They had looked horrible all year. Virginia goes into North Carolina. They go to North Carolina and beat them. That was honestly an epic collapse from North Carolina. Probably negated Drake May's Heisman run, honestly. That was really, North Carolina had it all in front of them. Just like what we saw with Louisville last week, where they had it all in front of them and they lose to Pitt. Again, the ACC is actually a lot kind of similar to the Pac-12, where you have it all in front of you, but there's a lot of parity there. There's not ACC so far. It's clear that's been Florida State, but who knows? Everyone. I think that's a lot of parity in that conference. And speaking of that conference, I didn't write this down. Another takeaway that we got to talk about, though, is Clemson loses their 3rd game of the season. They fall to 4-3. Dabo Swinney, is he cooked? Is he done? You got to have a serious conference. He should definitely be on the hot seat at this point. You were like, okay, give him some time. You saw after Trevor Lawrence left, you're like, give him a couple years. They'll be back. DJ Uiagalelei didn't work out. This offense for them is just not working at all. Dabo Swinney's inability or, not wanting to use the transfer portal is definitely hurting him. And overall, it's not a very good situation there in Clemson. When we were looking at just maybe 3 years ago, Clemson was a top-tier team with your Georgias and your Alabamas and your Ohio States. Now look at them. They're 4-3, 7 games into the season. They're 4-3. Probably make a bowl game, but the fact that you even have to put a probably in there, you already got teams like Ohio State and Georgia that have locked up a bowl game. So yeah, Clemson has really fallen from grace, for sure. Also, a team that has fallen from grace is Michigan State. They are a poor program. There's so much stuff going on. The Mel Tucker stuff. They got some really weird PA stuff going on there. If you watched the game or were on Twitter or whatever, you'll know what I'm referring to. And then they absolutely get slapped around by Michigan, 49-0. That's just embarrassing. That's just embarrassing. You gotta have a conversation about Michigan. This whole like stealing sign stuff. There's been just overall a lot of controversy around Michigan. Not sure how Jim Harbaugh survives this if he knew about it. And this guy posts 3 losses since 2020 in a timeline. 2018, 10-3. Pretty good year. 2019, 9-4. Yeah, not as good. 2020, obviously, that was the COVID year. Doesn't really count. But he's suggesting maybe the cheating is starting right here in 2021, 2022. He goes 12-2 and then 13-1. Maybe the cheating's starting. Who knows? I wanna give Jim Harbaugh the benefit of the doubt here because obviously innocent until proven guilty. It's totally plausible and totally understandable for Jim Harbaugh to have built up his recruiting, and he is a very good coach. You look at what he did at like Stanford. He built up that program. Very possible that he's built up Michigan to a big time program, and they are. But there's some serious maybe evidence here that there has been cheating going on. I mean, I don't know all the details about this. I'm probably not the guy to be asking about all the details about this. I'm just looking at this tweet and saying, interesting that you go a massive jump from being a pretty good team to a very good team. But obviously it could just be, hey, they, like any program, they built up their recruiting, they built up their status. Jim Harbaugh got his guys in there, all of that stuff. As a ref myself, a soccer ref, I got a feel for some of these refs, but some of these calls are like, what the heck? I've got 3 situations off the top of my head. The Iowa one, obviously robbed. Did that look like a fair catch? Like the fact that they do that touchdown and then they go to a review and they're like, yeah, no, he called for a fair catch. It wasn't even like a call in the moment. It wasn't even a call that the refs had done where like, oh yeah, I saw that he did a fair catch. You went back and said, oh yeah, that looks like a fair catch to me. Yeah, Iowa done. And that had ruined their season. They were on track, only 1 loss. Hey, who knows? Maybe they could have stumbled their way into a playoff. You never know with college football. They were on track to go 11-1, make it to the conference championship game. I don't think it's completely over because obviously that division in the Big Ten is really bad, honestly. But it kind of ruined Iowa's season on a call like that, and it was just such an amazing play punt return. That was really unfortunate. Then we have another one with Texas and Houston. The ref spots the ball at a really bad spot. With that one, maybe it's the ref saw something that we didn't, but still poor spot, and then Houston couldn't convert on 4th down. And then finally, Arizona State and Washington. Washington was in a nail biter, and they were down 7-6. Arizona State is driving down, could put themselves up 14-6. Instead, they throw it up. There's no pass interference call. Then Arizona State throws a pick 6 that changes the game. Washington escapes in what was a 12-7 game. That was completely ugly, and we'll talk more about it when I get to my rankings. But they escape. Let's see. Utah Trojan Killers. Bryson Barnes outplayed. Bryson Barnes, the pig farmer, a walk-on who just recently got a scholarship this year. He outplays Heisman winner Caleb Williams pretty much in that 4th quarter, I think. What a run. Caleb Williams, he's fumbling the ball all of this. And then on the other side, he can't get a 2-point conversion. On the other side, Bryson Barnes makes the biggest play of his life, runs down, gutsy run, puts Utah in field goal range, and Utah does what Oregon couldn't do against Washington. What was that, last week or 2 weeks? Yeah, last week. They do what Oregon couldn't do and make the game-winning field goal, and Caleb Williams and USC lose to Utah for a 3rd straight time. I think it's real funny because you look at this USC and UCLA, they really set up this whole thing of just destroying the Pac-12. And then all of a sudden, you got Utah beating USC over and over again, almost like punishing them for breaking up the Pac-12, which we've seen in this season, especially. The Pac-12 is just so good. So let's go to my top 10 after week 8. I believe this is week 8. So number 1, Ohio State. They have got the eye test locked in. They've got the competition locked in. Ohio State is the number 1 team in the nation, no doubt in my mind. Michigan at number 2. They have not played a lot, but as I've said before, they are dominating their way through the competition. There's not much they can control if their conference is just straight up trash. Next is Florida State. Moving Florida State up to number 3. Now, they have looked very good. They beat a pretty good Duke team. We talked about this Duke team having a very good defense, and they dropped 38 on them. So Florida State's coming in at number 3. As I said, that Keon Coleman and Jordan Travis duo. Can't forget about Benson, the running back. They have so many weapons there. Florida State, this looks like one of those years for Florida State. Like maybe that they will actually make it to the playoff this time around, and that they maybe, Florida State is really back. Next, I have number 4. I'm putting Georgia at number 4. They move up. I had them, I think, like number 6 or 7. Putting them up. They just had a bye week. We'll see about we'll see about Georgia. If we go over to the AP rankings, they got Florida next. Florida, you never know. That's a big rivalry. They're not as they're obviously not that great this year, but Georgia, as I've said, as I just said with Michigan, they can't control their conference opponents really, and they're still winning. They're taking care of business. They're still being Georgia, so they're at number 4. Number 5 is Oklahoma. They barely escaped against UCF. UCF at 3-4 this year. Really not, that great. But, maybe we can give Oklahoma the benefit of that of, hey, they have never really had to play UCF in this kind of conference play type of thing. But it was really not a great showing. A lot of these teams shaky. And these top 3 teams were pretty much only few teams that really just blew away. Obviously you got Oregon, but they have a loss. But these 3 right here, Ohio State, Michigan, and Florida State are the only ones undefeated and just blew away their opponents. Oklahoma and Washington, 2 undefeateds that really had shaky weeks this week, so that's why they are at 5 and 6. And I put Oklahoma above Washington because you look at it, Oklahoma beat Texas, who had beat a ranked Alabama team, whereas Washington beat Oregon, who hasn't really beaten a lot of people. Oregon just beat Washington State, who is not as good as we thought they were. Number 7, Texas. Number 8, Alabama. Texas narrowly escapes Houston, but I still got them above Bama. Bama has a great comeback. You think, okay, they go down 20-7. You think, okay, maybe it's caught up to Alabama. They're not getting away from this one. Tennessee is looking really good. And they come back, again, as I said, Jalen Miller's just getting better and better. You see he's got the talent. And obviously they got a whole bunch of other, talent because it is Alabama. They're coming around. And like Alabama, out of the 1-loss teams, you got to give them as the highest chance to make it to the college football playoff. Just, the way Nick Saban coaches, we know he's a great coach. And I give him a good shot against Georgia, especially at Georgia where they haven't really been tested that much, Georgia, so we don't really know a ton about Georgia. So number 9, Oregon, as I said, they have a great bounce back win against Washington State. Again, everything's in front of Oregon. They have Utah this week. Game day is going to be there. That's a huge game. Winner of that is right up with Washington. Winner of that is looking like a very good shot to go to the Pac-12 championship game. Oregon, they got a lot in front of them. So does Utah. Those 2 teams got a lot in front of them. They can win out, get to the college football playoff, or they can just start stumbling. Because, again, that Pac-12 competition, you never know week to week. Then I dropped Penn State to number 10. I just had them, number 1 or 2. Dropped them to number 10. Really bad offensive showing. Defense, tried their best, but can't do much if the offense isn't doing anything. So we got quite a few honorable mentions here. Oregon State, they look really, good. I think they had a bye week this week. We'll see what they show up with. They still have everything in front of them. They just have one loss. They just lost to Washington State, and I bet they're kind of kicking themselves like, man, Washington State is not as good as we all thought. We probably should have won that game. But they did beat Utah, who obviously you got to have in front of. Utah, though, a great win against USC, destroy USC's whole season there, and Utah's got everything in front of them. Missouri, they only have one loss. They got everything in front of them. They're going to have Georgia soon. We can check them out. And then Air Force, they're looking like that top team in the Mountain West. I believe they beat Wyoming, who had beaten Air Force. They then beat Navy in that Commanders Cup game. And Air Force, undefeated, definitely my top choice so far to be that New Year's Six team. You obviously got your Tulanes, but Air Force undefeated, looking good. Missouri, let's look at who they have next week. They're still just at number 16. They have Georgia. So they have Georgia. This is going to be that big test. They have at Georgia. Honestly, I'd pick them as 20-point underdogs or something. Let's go to the AP Top 25 while we're here. Georgia stays at number 1. Okay, they've been at number 1 all season, defending champions. Okay. They got Missouri has Georgia in 2 weeks. It looks like, because Georgia's got at Florida next week. Michigan has a bye, then they have Purdue. They're at number 2. I don't like this. I don't like Michigan above Ohio State. After Ohio State has, this is why we have a committee for the college football playoff, because a committee would look at it and say, oh yeah, Ohio State is above Michigan, and oh yeah, Ohio State probably is above Georgia. We're looking at this season. We're not looking at last season. Yeah, Georgia and Michigan were the top 2 teams in that college football playoff ranking at the end of the year. Were they just top 2 teams at the end of the year? But we're talking about this year. Then Florida State at number 4. Washington stays at number 5. Oklahoma stays at number 6. So the top 6 stays. Interesting. Okay. Texas is at number 7. It looks like they really like Texas. And then Oregon is above Alabama, which I like to see. And they got Utah, obviously. You look at any Big Ten, Oklahoma, they have at Kansas. You never know. Oklahoma could slip up there. And then all of a sudden you're looking at Texas to be really the only Big 12 team in contention. Especially considering that Oklahoma team looked really slippery against UCF. I think if they play Kansas, I think Kansas can get them. I think Kansas can actually get them. Alabama plays LSU in 2 weeks. That will be a very good game. LSU and their quarterback Daniels, really good. It's just a shame that their offense or their defense is really bad, because that offense is putting up big time numbers. Daniels has the best numbers of any quarterback, I believe, in all of college football. I think he has more yards than Michael Penix at this point. He's playing amazing. It's really a shame that LSU has those 2 losses. That's what's holding them back. I would put them above Notre Dame, honestly. But let's look here. Penn State at number 10, like I said. Ole Miss at number 12. Don't like it. Sorry, don't like it. I think Utah should be above. Oregon State, they're right there. They can move in. You look at, is there any chance? No top 10 matchup, so they might be staying there, assuming all these top 10s win, which is no assuming. Oregon, but I think Oregon and Utah play, obviously, but I think if Utah wins that, they're definitely moving into the top 10. Let's see, Notre Dame at number 14. Okay, are they looking at it? Are they the best 2-loss team with them and LSU? Interesting comparison. I think that's a real toss-up, honestly, at this point. I think Missouri should be ahead of those 2-loss teams. Just 1 loss. We'll see what happens with them with Georgia. North Carolina, are they our biggest drop? I think they are. Yep, North Carolina, the biggest drop. Yeah, they deserve it to lose to a now 2-5 Virginia team. Pathetic showing from North Carolina. The Air Force is way too low. Air Force got to move up. These teams, I think, should make way for your Air Forces and your Missouris. Tennessee is dropping 4 spots after losing to Alabama. Okay. Real just disappointment there for Tennessee to drop a 20-7 lead. It was 20-7 at halftime. Ugh. And then Alabama scores what was it, like 8 straight points. USC, should they still be in that top 25? 2 real pathetic showings back. Not pathetic, but like, well, for the Notre Dame game, I think that was pathetic. But and then this one, they lose 2 straight losses. I don't know if I like them. I think you got to put your Liberties. I think you got to put Liberty in there. They're still undefeated. I like that James Madison is getting the respect that they deserve. They have moved up into the top 25. That's good to see. And then UCLA too. That is going to be it. Peace out.